Namaste, friends and family, beautiful souls, Venus lovers. Welcome back to my channel. This is Dr. Danny, physician astrologer. We are not in Kansas anymore. Wow, this lunar cycle has been very, very interesting. Last few months have been very, very interesting, transformative, crazy, wild. Um, this full moon is the culmination of this lunar cycle, and it's already been amazingly weird. And I owe that to the Mars Uranus conjunction that is in Taurus right now. So I want to go through the parable of the Wizard of Oz because there are some teachings in there that are very synchronistic to this full moon's axis. It's very unique because when you use constellational astrology, i.e., just the stars, you don't use the tropical ephemeris, you get a early Cancer, late Gemini. Uh, I'm sorry, early Cancer, late Sagittarius axis, which is the fiery heart longing for the next horizon and the soul energy of the home, the private, the internal energy. So it's such a unique and interesting balance and interplay of energies that you wouldn't normally get if you were only looking at the tropical astrology. So, those of you that follow tropical astrology, stay with me because this is such a beautiful energy when you think of the movie, The Wizard of Oz. So, I am going to briefly take you guys through the parable of the Wizard of Oz. And I'll point out parts of this story that are very Cancer energy, and I'll point out parts of this story that are Sagittarius. And this is the energy of this full moon. Then we'll go through some of the aspects of sun and moon and some of the other interesting aspects. So before I get started, a couple of announcements. I think after this weekend, once we get through the first Q&A for the Financial and Business Astrology course, we're going to close that off for the live for being part of the group. You can still do it, but everything you get is going to be pre-recorded. You won't be part of the live energy. So if you want to get in on that class after this weekend, after this moon's over, I'm closing it down for a couple of weeks. So in terms of the live. So that link's below. If you need a reading, my links are below. I did a forensic astrology report on the recent events. So if you wanted to check that out, that's on YouTube and Rumble. If it's still there, I hope it is. And that's really all I wanted to share with you guys today. So, all right, here we go. Let me share my screen. What I want to do first is go to the sky. I want to show you what I mean by this very unique Sagittarius Cancer axis, because in tropical, it's going to always be Cancer and Capricorn. And that's a very logical, we understand that archetype, we understand that polarity and that dichotomy, but a Cancer Sagittarius, that's super interesting. So let's see what that feels like. We're just going to look at the moon. You can see here that it is at the very tail end of Sagittarius, no pun intended, or pun intended, I should say, and about to enter the goat's mouth. In fact, later on the day of the full moon, because this is an early full moon, later on in the day, the moon will in fact be in Capricorn. It's right there, and also conjunct planet Pluto, because that's what Pluto is too, in the sky. And then we look over here to our sun, and you can see that we are in the early stages of Cancer, just left Gemini. And this is, I'm not joking, 721. Okay. So we're not even in Leo season yet. We're barely into Cancer at this point. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that. That's what we are working with this type of astrology. It doesn't mean that you can't use your tropical astrology and call this whatever sun moon you want it to be. It's just this is where it's actually in the sky, and that's what we practice. I'll show you on a chart real quick, and then we'll get into this parable. We'll get into this energy of the Wizard of Oz so you guys can feel what this Cancer Sagittarius axis feels like. First of all, we have Pluto conjunct Moon. We'll talk about that. That's also in this story. And then we have Sun in Cancer. So you see that axis right here. I mean, very last degrees, you could almost convince yourself that they're, um, you know, last degree of Sagittarius, Pluto's in the 0 degree of Capricorn, retrograde too. So they're opposing each other. It's almost like a Sun Pluto opposition. It is a Sun Pluto opposition. And this in general is purging energy. This is full expression of the self and leaving everything else behind because it doesn't serve you. That authentic expression of the self has to be truthful with Pluto too, or it will literally destroy it. So this is intense energy, and so is this. So we're going to get into all that. All right. The Wizard of Oz, Dr. Danny, really, you can't just talk about astrology. Well, the ancient stories are told in our skies, and the modern stories are derivations of these ancient stories. And so it's not a bad idea to check back in our modern stories how it relates to that energy. So here is Moon and Sun, Sag, Cancer axis. So you have this young girl who lives on a farm who dreams about somewhere over the rainbow, which is very Sagittarius energy, just wants to see that next horizon. That's literally Moon and Sag. I'm just feeling it, I'm emoting it, I'm expressing it, I want to go. Then you've got this woman, and I'm totally abbreviating this story for you guys so that you can get this Cancer Sagittarius axis. There's this woman called Elmira Gulch who actually ends up being the Wicked Witch of the West in the Oz part of this movie. She wants to take away Dorothy's dog because the dog did something to her, or bit her, or something. So she grabs the dog, puts it in her basket, and goes away on her little bike. Somehow Toto escapes and gets home with Dorothy, and Dorothy's ready to run away because she does not want Toto to be gone. So she runs into this wizard, and she's got everything packed. She's ready to go. The wizard looks into his crystal ball and he says, "Oh, somebody's in trouble at home. You should run home right now." On her way home, a tornado comes in. Everybody's in the tornado cellar except she missed it. She ended up in her house and landed here in Oz. So she went through the tornado. There's a couple pictures that it might be out of order here. Did I not save them? That would be so sad. Oh, I guess I didn't. There was a picture of her in the house as all these visions were swirling by, and for me, this catastrophic event of this tornado that picked her up and took her out of her place in Kansas, dropped her in the middle of Oz. Uh, that was a very Plutonian event, a very purifying event. The only thing she could take with her was her dog, which is a very sort of hero's journey tarot card, the fool, just going off into the horizon without even realizing, what kind of trouble she could get into. So at any rate, she lands in Oz, and now the movie's in color. So they use this is one of the first movies that ever used color. So when you think about like Neptune and Pisces, it's just this like bringing the fantasy to reality. And it's very different from Kansas. It's got lush vegetation. There's munchkins everywhere. There's uh, witches that you land your house on. And so, long story short, everyone's really happy that her house landed on the Wicked Witch of the East. So one of the good witches from the north comes in and says, "You shall have her shoes." And so Dorothy's got these beautiful shoes on, and she goes through all of these trials and tribulations only to realize that the shoes that she got in the very beginning of her journey were the very thing that could take her home. And when she gets home, her entire perspective has completely changed. And so it's this whole home better than the distant horizon, the grass is greener on the other side type of energy. This is what this Sagittarius Cancer axis feels like for me. It's like you've got this longing to go forth and to be purified. But meanwhile, the expression is from the home, it's from the deep inner workings, the knowings of the soul. So that's this axis in general for me. And you won't get this every year. And so it's a really unique time. And I think we're all feeling that in light of recent events and all the craziness that we're witnessing. in the world. So let's go ahead and see what these aspects feel like. The sun is doing some things. Let's see. So sun is sextiling Mars and Uranus, right? Right here and here. This was a dynamo right here. This will probably, I think this happens about every 2 or 3 years. And I, for one, am going to keep my eyes on that. Actually, I might go back in the past and see if I can correlate any events to it. Um, so this is creative and innovative flair with action. That's sort of the higher polarity of Uranus and Mars together. But you have recently witnessed the negative polarity of it, where it's a freedom fighter, a freedom fighting for freedom and fighting for what you value, which is Taurus, fighting for the things that you have, rebelliousness, you know, doing things in a different way, doing things in a solitary way as well. And that's sextiling on the sun. And so that can be a way to express yourself in a high polarity or an opportunity to um, use it for not so good stuff. So a lot of instability with this energy too is possible. Instability in in the soul, in the home, you know, the rumblings of revolution energy, revolt energy can be very disturbing to the soul, or even the ego. The ego is in the soul's place. Then we have Sun trining onto Neptune. So this could actually put a mask on us. It could hide our true expression of ourselves. Pisces, Neptune and Pisces is a very nice energy. It's very dreamy. It's very connected to spirit. It's so engulfed in the mist. But right now, Neptune's in retrograde, and so there's a bit of a lifting of the veil into the true dynamic of the soul here. So that's a nice energy. And then the sun opposing Pluto, I touched on this a little bit, but this can be just a disorienting type of energy, like things so catastrophic and emotional because the moon's there, that it can be very, very emotionally disturbing and upsetting for the soul and purging of a lot of wounded energy as well. It can also be that nice energy of, Dorothy longing for the next horizon, but this could be the other side of it too. Sun also squares on Chiron, so Chiron squares both moon and uh, sun right now. This is tough. This is tough for collective wounds, wounds of disconnection from the spirit. How can these things happen if there is a spirit, if there's some all-knowing presence that created everything and is love and compassion? Why do these horribly transformative events have to occur? That's the question that gets asked when Chiron would square an energy like this. There's a grief energy here, right? So our grief may culminate at this full moon, which means that it's time to let it go. So a releasing energy as well. An integration energy is available to us. The sun is also trining on Lilith. And so this can be an empowerment and an independence that is very nice, if especially with that sextile to, Mars and Uranus. So a creative and transformative energy. Libra's not such a nice energy for the feminine and the emotional, because it's so balanced and it has such a high perspective that, like, there's no real room for emotion. It's whatever is harmonious, whatever that means. And so this grand trine between Neptune, Sun, and Lilith could be just an instinctual need for harmony, and sometimes these purging energies are necessary. This transformative, trial by fire energy is necessary in order to restore the balance. So that's what it is. It's restoring. And that's the journey, right? How can you change your perspective? Well, you have to go through something. You can't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to think about this differently. Sometimes you have to go through things just like Dorothy did. I mean, yeah, she could have clicked her heels and gone home right away, but her mission, her purpose was to go through that journey so that she could realize how much she loved and missed her home and how much she valued her home. So moon, everything that sun sextiles and trines, moon does the opposite when they're in a full moon. So sun sextiles Mars and Uranus, moon trines Mars and Uranus. And so this powerful transformative energy boosts our feelings of freedom and taking action in independence. Um, there might be a religious component to this. There's a concept, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. There's a concept of a pendulum swing in politics. We go from one side to the other and back again. And those inflection points are pretty critical when we go from one extreme to the other, or when we're in the middle and we start moving towards another extreme. There's a building of kinetic energy and then a release of the kinetic energy. Okay. And so we are there's a building of kinetic energy, right? And Mars with Uranus can be really volatile. So there's a potential here for an expression of kinetic energy, a release of kinetic energy as this full moon culminates and releases. Okay, I don't know what that means. I don't know how that will manifest. That could be good, that could be harmful. So just, stay frosty around this full moon. I would watch tempers, I would watch emotions. If you're feeling angered or triggered, back up a minute, back up a step, ask your body what it needs, and take care of yourself. The sun's activity is also extremely high right now. Solar flares, X flares, M flares, all over the place. And so you're going to have a short fuse in this energy. Even though it's a trine, it just means it's easy. There's dry timbers and there's hot flint, and the sun's beaming down on it, and it could potentially ignite. So, yeah, watch all that. Moon sextiles Neptune. So then here we go. Nebulous emotions or the clear truth of emotions, right? With that retrograde Neptune. I mean, like I said, it lifts the veil. And so you truly see. Pluto sextile Neptune's been that way for a long time. And the moon's just highlighting that energy, which is surrendering to the transformation. So instead of getting triggered and trying to resist the transformation, surrender to it. Just let it happen. Understand, have faith. There's a reason, there's a purpose. There's a purpose for these trials. There's a purpose for these tribulations. And I think we're in that time where it could be, that is just the way it is. So, and then of course, moon conjunct Pluto is is not always nice either. It's the nice side of this is that there's spiritual and earthly assistance available to us through moon energy for anything that could be frightening. Um, just be ready for anything, I would say, and watch the extremes of emotions. Don't be too into something, don't be too against something. Try to stay in the center, try to stay in the middle, try to bring harmony and balance to whatever situation that you're in. All right, we've already talked about the moon and sun squaring onto Chiron. So let's think, what other aspects are we looking at here? Mercury is doing a T-square to Mars, Uranus, and Lilith. Let's look at the nodes real quick. Is there anything happening to the nodes? Yes, Jupiter is trining onto the south node. So yeah, some of us might be overzealous, overgenerous, falling back into old patterns that feel good here with Jupiter. Jupiter is very expansive in abundance, in money, in things, in Taurus. And so this might be helpful because you can gather your resources in order to cope with all of this very heavy energy that we're dealing with through the expansion that's going to come with this full moon. Remember, it's just an expansion, it's just a breath, and it's temporary, and the energy will die down. So you don't have to take action always. Sometimes the perfect action is inaction. Mercury's now in Leo. Um, and this is actually, before I talk about Mercury, I want to point out that Venus is trining onto the south node, trining onto the north node and sextiling the south node. So there's a creative energy here that is available to us that will help us towards our collective destiny. I think that's always a good place to look with any full moon, to keep focused on the destiny. And what is that? It's universal love and oneness. It's recognition. It's compassion. It's forgiveness. This is Pisces and North Node. This is what we're dealing with right now. And the South Node in Virgo is remembering our true origin, our true source, forgiving all those traumatic wounds from the past, um, forgiving all those injustices, because if you can go through that integration and that forgiveness in this lifetime, you heal 7 generations behind you and you heal 7 generations ahead of you. And it's really beautiful energy. And so you have the creative compassion energy of Venus in Cancer with that ancient remembering that can propel you towards our universal love and oneness. So that's Venus energy. That's always really nice. That's a great thing to focus on through this full moon for sure. And then we have Mercury. So Mercury just recently moved into Leo on Friday, Friday the 12th, I want to say. And this is a confident, vivid, motivated, communicative energy. It's expressive communication. So it's hot talking essentially. So angry would come to mind, or very funny and expressive in terms of a performance type of energy. So that's how you could use Mercury. Mercury is doing this T square to the Mars and Uranus, and then back onto Lilith. So Mercury square Mars can be hot debate. Okay. So just remember, and then Lilith is that instinctual, obsessive energy for harmony. So it might be kind of an energy where you argue to bring harmony, but in the argument, disrupt it at the same time. So again, it's another warning to watch the emotions. This one's going to be a hard one, you guys. This will be a hard one to watch. There's going to be things that try us to our deepest spiritual level, and it is a spiritual battle that we are in for sure. So let's see. I think that's everything that I wanted to say about this full moon in particular. Just remember that journey that Dorothy took was temporary. And in fact, at the end of the movie, it was almost as if it was a dream, you know? And so the question you have to ask yourself is, are you dreaming? What is real? What is real for you? That which you give your attention to will become real for you. So choose what you pay attention to very wisely in the coming weeks and months, my friends. There's a lot of very benefic energy that's available to us, but there is a lot of energy that is being used to anger us, to catalyze us. And when you feel like you have been triggered or catalyzed, it's an amazing opportunity for you to step back and observe yourself and say, what are you doing? And why are you doing that? Just ask yourself, wait, why am I doing this? Why do I feel this way? Ask yourself everything that you do. And if it doesn't make sense to you anymore, it's time to let it go. It's time to be done with it. And if that means not being around certain people that have certain views just for a little while, that's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It's ultimately going to benefit you, and you will maintain your love, compassion, and respect for those people at the same time. So I just wanted to talk about this moon with you guys. Like the video if you love the content. Please subscribe if you're lurking, and join the Fellowship of 13 Signs if you haven't already. And of course, I'm available if you all need a reading, or I have courses, so check out learn.drdanny.com. And the Venus transit video through Leo is coming, so that's going to be hot. Venus through Leo is very, very summertime energy. You're going to love it. So I love you, my friends. Until next time, namaste.